This is the Amud from Shabbos. We're going to Shabbos. Chatzer Strauss. And we're up to, that's Vav. We're going to finish with the bottom of Yudal and Beis on the bottom of the Gemara. Amr Ula. Kolakere Kriya Shema B'Loi Tefillin. Saying Kriya Shema B'Loi Tefillin is Ki'ilu made Eidish Sheker Ba'atzmai. It's like you're missing, it's the oila without the mincha, the zevich without the nesachim. What's the Eidish Sheker? As Rashi explains that, if Rashi explains, the Meforshim explained, some of the Rishonim explained, that the idea is that you're made Eidish Sheker is just saying the mitzvah of wearing tefillin. Ukshartum le'oisa yadecha. But you're not mekayim it. So it's like false testimony. You're not being honest. You're saying that Hashem, you're saying Hashem Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and He says to wear tefillin, and you don't do it. So your testimony about that Hashem is Hashem Echad is somewhat false. You're somewhat contradicting your testimony. If you really believe it, why don't you do what it says? Okay, we're in the bottom line, Rabbi. So we're in the bottom line of Yudal and Beis. What is the correct way, the way to fully fulfill Kabbalah Shamayim? That means Kriya Shema, right? So how do you do that? First, the person should relieve himself. Yifane, go to the bathroom, v'yitul yodav, and then wash your hands. V'yaniach tefillin, v'yikra Kriya Shema, and then v'yispalel. V'zui malchus shamayim shleimo. Okay, Rabbi, so top of Tesvav Menalef. Amrab Kriya B'Rabban Rabbi Yechid Kol Anifnim v'noitul yodav. Anyone who relieves himself and then washes his hands, and when he tefillin Kriya Shema spalel, ma'ila v'kosuv ki'ilu bona mizbeach, because korban. It's the equivalent of bringing a korban chsiv. How do I know? I know it from the pasuk. Erchatz b'nikoyin kapai. I wash my hands. Now, assuming it's v'soives mizbechecha Hashem. So it's like a remez. Washing your hands, and then Kriya Shema must be with Kriya Shema is like es soives mizbechecha. Omnei Rav lo yisavol lemar kilu tovel. What about it's like tefillah? Why does it say I'll bathe myself? That's rechitza. That's like tefillah. Rechitz kopsara, it says in the pasuk. That's by tefillah. It's rechitza. Loksiv doesn't say erchitz kapai. It doesn't say I wash my hands. Erchatz implies, Rashi says, the entire body. One second, does he answer that? Doesn't answer that. According to this gear, so that's unanswered. There was a big Talmud Chacham came from Eretz Yisrael, and he said, "Misha ein lo mayim." Now this is very important. If you don't have water, you don't have enough water. What do? Sometimes you go someplace you don't have water. Now, by the way, this halacha here, Yital Yodav, I'll just explain this. This is halacha in tefillah that a person always has to wash his hands before tefillah. So it's obviously in Shachar, you wake up, you wash your hands before you daven. But by mincha also, it's halacha that you need to wash your hands. So what if you don't have water? So he said, interesting, you use something to wipe off your hands, something to make a friction, like use even dirt, which is, I think it's not so clean, but somewhat it wipes off the hands, it cleans the hands to some level. or like pebbles or something, or chips of wood. Amalei shapikama, very good, because I'll prove it to you. Why? Miksi erchatz b'mayim. The pasuk says, "I wash b'nikoyin." That was the point. The bottom line is nikoyin, is cleaning my hands, not the rinsing the hands with the water. So therefore, when a person doesn't have water, so b'di'evid, so you can make sure your hands are clean, you wipe your hands, that's b'di'evid, it works. And we're going to prove that for a second now, from Chisda. Rav Chisda was light. He actually would, he was very unhappy, he would curse one Mahader, Amaya, Be'idan, Tzlusa. In other words, if the time came to daven, it's already the time for Kriya Shema or davening, being in Tzlusa, Tefillah. Sorry, V'hanim the Kriya Shema, right. And the Gemara says that's for Kriya. In other words, once it comes Zman Kriya Shema, so now your time is limited. Once the clock hits Zman Kriya Shema, that means to say, obviously there's still time left. Of course, you have to, because otherwise, why would you have to say Kriya Shema right away? But even if there's time left, he still says, don't go running around looking for water. If you have water, great. If you know the water is, okay. But don't go running around looking for water. Because why? That proves that because b'di'evid you could suffice with just using something to clean your hands. And if you were obligated up din to find water, to use water, then it wouldn't be an acceptable solution to use not to look for water. You'd have to look for water. But for tefillah, which you do have to wash your hands for tefillah, and because the zman tefillah is less rigid, there's more leeway for the zman tefillah. So therefore, you should go look for water. Again, it doesn't mean you should look for water at the expense of missing Zman Tefillah. It means you should look for water, if you still have time to daven, and that's okay. We're not going to be upset with that. Well, I will Tefillah mahadav ad kama ad parsa. How far do you go? A parsa. So parsa is quite a distance. In other words, you can look up for 70. So it's 4 meal. It's approximately 72 minutes. So it means you could spend up to 72 minutes traveling in order to wash your hands for tefillah. Now, there's a but to that. In other words, again, not only could you should. You're obligated to. However, hanimiri the kamei. That's to go forwards. Which means it's follow. Okay, so this means as follows. If you're on the road and you don't have water, and it's really Zman Tefillah already, so since you'll still be able to make Zman Tefillah in 72 minutes or plus, so the correct thing to do is continue up to 72 minutes to find water. So you push off Zman Tefillah 72 minutes in order to find water. But that's only if it's on your way. If you're proceeding in the way you're going, that's the correct thing to do. Avul achure, but to go backwards, to go out, which just basically means out of your way, to go back to return to where you're coming from, to go in the wrong direction or out of the way. So then afilu meal chozer. Meal is a quarter of a parsa. It's 4 meal of a parsa. So meal is according to halacha is 18 minutes. So that's halacha. So the Gemara says we know a meal de'eino chozer, a pax meal chozer. So that means to say if it's less than 18 minutes to get water, then you also go out of your way. You'll travel out of your way as long as it's less than 18 minutes. Once it's over 18 minutes, there's no need to do that. If it's within 18 minutes, yes. So in other words, if you're traveling, really it means 9 minutes out of the way, like 7-8 minutes. If you're traveling 8.5 minutes out of the way, and you have to travel 8 minutes back to where you were, so then that you should do as long as it's within that time. Okay, that's the din of washing your hands. Okay, now we're going to discuss the din of a Kriya Shema. Okay, this is important halacha. Kriya Shema v'lo yishmiya la'ozna yotza. So the Tanna Kama says that, and we'll see at the end of the sugya what halacha is, that do you actually have to hear the words of Shema? Now we're going to see that doesn't mean Rabbi Yossi lo yotza. Rabbi Yossi says yes, you must hear the words. Now the Tanna Kama says no, you don't have to actually hear the words. You have to say the words. So we'll see what comes out in halacha here. But again, so when you say Shema, do you have to hear the words? Of course, we're not talking about hearer. Hearer, we'll see later on. We'll get to it in the second parak. Is lavke dibadami. But even if you're not being mahar, you're actually pronouncing the words. But do you have to actually hear the words you pronounce? So that's the machlekes. That's one machlekes. Now there's another machlekes. Karav lo diktik bo'isi yosel. And we have to define what this means. But you didn't pronounce the words properly. Rabbi Yossi says yotza, Rabbi Yehuda lo yotza. So here's Rabbi Yossi is the one that says, okay, no big deal. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you're not yotza. Now, obviously, if you completely mispronounce the words, so then you didn't say Shema, and that's not saying the words are Shema. You can't be yotza. What we'll see in the Gemara, what it means mispronouncing the words, means, let's say you're swallowing the words. You're not completely mispronouncing it, but they're swallowing the words. So Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yossi says you're yotza. Rabbi Yehuda says no, you have to pronounce every word. Okay, third halacha in the Mishnah. Hakoyre the mafreya lo yotza. That means to say as follows: you must read the psukim in order. If it's read, a freya means it's read out of order. You know, you missed a pasuk and you went back and we just said a pasuk out of order. That does not count. You have to say the whole thing from the order. Go back to where you missed. And therefore, it's kind of the next halacha is about the fourth halacha here. Kara v'toya yachsav achushotoya. So, in other words, if you're saying v'hayim shemaya and you skip the pasuk, so you have to go back to wherever you left off. You know, obviously you go back to wherever you missed. You can't just say the pasuk. And we'll see again if you're not sure. Toya means you're not sure. You made a mistake. So you have to go back to where you're sure make sure that you said Kriyashma. Okay, so we're going to pay attention here. We're going to calculate a little bit. Okay, but again, we have two shitas. Do you have to hear Shema? We're going to see. Do you have to actually hear the words? So let's see where this comes from. Okay, we're going to learn with my time. My time, Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says you must hear the words. How does he know that? I'll tell you. Dichsiv Shema Shmei Loznecha. That's exactly why the Torah uses the terminology Shema. You must go into your ears. You have to hear it. It's good kinda. So how does the Tanna Kama argue on that? Tanna Kama says Shema b'chol lashon shetem Shema. He says no. The implication of the word Shema is simply that Kriya Shema could be said, translated into another language, and also be said. As long as you precisely translate the words and say the words in any language, you're yotze. B'chol lashon shetem Shema. For Rabbi Yossi, tal tishma mina. And Rabbi Yossi says, okay, I could actually learn both points from this word Shema. That you can say it in any language, and you must hear the words. Zok di Gemara Tanan Hasam Cherish Hamidaber Ve'enu Shemei. Okay, pay attention here. We got to calculate this a little bit. Okay, you have a person who's deaf. So Cherish is a deaf. Okay. Now, some people that are deaf can speak. He's a medaber, ve'enu shemei. So, sometimes a person who can't hear, naturally can't speak because he can't hear. But you can have a person who, whatever it is, he knows that he can speak. Maybe he lost his hearing after he knew how to speak, or whatever it is. Today, there's different ways people know how to speak. Al kapanim, he can speak, but he can't hear. So he wants to take truma. Okay, so what does that do with anything? Teretz is as follows. Truma, like any mitzvah almost you do, it requires a bracha. So now there's an assumption, and that is the same way that it says in the Mishnah that Rabbi Yossi says you must. We're going to analyze which opinion it is, but the same way there's a concept in Kriya Shema, you must hear the word. So too in any bracha you make. The correct way to make the bracha is to say the bracha loud enough that you actually hear what you said. Okay? So, therefore, it says, now we're going to analyze this, but it says in the Mishnah that one who cannot speak should not take truma. You told him truma, it's a truma. And we're going to see why should he take truma? What's wrong? The text is because he can't make the bracha. So better off let someone else take the truma and they can make the bracha. But on the other hand, the truma is a truma. In bracha, you're supposed to make a bracha, but we have a klal, brachas ended me'akvos. Doesn't mean you didn't do a mitzvah. Of course, the bracha is very powerful and it has a tremendous effect on the mitzvah, but it's not ma'akev and the truma is a truma. So mantane, so now let's analyze. What do you guys think? Who is the author of this Mishnah of Cheirish Medam Diavad in the Chatchila? Does it make sense? It's according to Rabbi Yossi. It says you have to hear, or maybe it makes sense to the Chachamim. So the Gemara says the Chayra Amar Chisda. It's Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is the one that said in the Mishnah you must hear Shema. So that's the same concept over here. You must hear Shema. It's not a Chayra Shema v'lo Shmila Oznav Yatsa. Divri Rabbi Yehuda. We're going to now, right? And Rabbi Yossi says our Mishnah is Lo Yatsa. So, okay, but he says you could take Truma, so it says fine. I will explain this a certain way. I'm explaining the more pashut way. Ad kan lo kam Rabbi Yossi Lo Yatsa gabi Kriya Shema was the nice. By Kriya Shema it's the right. You must say Kriya Shema. The whole mitzvah is to say the Kriya Shema. So Rabbi Yossi says you're not Yotze if you don't say the words, you don't hear it. Avol Truma is not be'etzem, it's not inherently dependent on the bracha. It's so the mishum avot truma mishum bracha. The reason why you must hear is because the bracha d'Rabbanan, and the bracha is in Rabbanan. It's not makev the truma. It's something that the Rabbanan said to say. It's not makev the truma. So therefore, it's very good. So this was very, very logical that this author is the same Rabbi Yossi who says that you need to hear. The Rabbanan were more lenient, so you don't have to hear. So they would say maybe the Chatchila you could take truma, no problem. Even though the deaf person could take truma, even if you can't make the bracha. Okay, Adkan. Now, step 2. Pay attention. That's step 1. Step 2. We're going to question that assumption now. Why? What gives you the right to assume this? What do you mean, Rabbi Yehuda? Was he care? I'll tell you what he cares. If you notice, if you pay careful attention to the words of Rabbi Yehuda, what does he say? Hakoyrei Shema. If he said the Shema is Yotzod, Teda diktani hakoyrei. He doesn't say you can read Shema, Yikra Shema, right? He shall read Shema. No, he says one who did this, whether he was supposed to or not, is Yotzeh in hakoyrei di'evet. That's b'di'evet. That's if he did it already. L'chatchila loy. So even he agrees you should not make a bracha. You should not say Kriya Shema if you can't hear. And for the Gemara, so that's why we say, how do you know it's Rabbi Yossi? So the Gemara answers, Amri, ha diktoni hakoyrei is lo dicha koiche de Rabbi Yossi. No, really your assumption in Rabbi Yehuda that is b'diavad is not true. Really, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't care. You say it, don't you hear it? You don't hear it. Makes no difference to him. So why do you use this terminology? Hakoyrei, one already read. Teretz is because that's l'hoidicha koichet Rabbi Yossi d'amadiavad nami loy. Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi is the one that said even b'diavad, even if you did it already, no, not good. Do it again. You're not yotzeh. Lo. And that's why we assume that the Mishnah over there in Trumas is according to Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, that was step 2, 3. Okay, now we're going to go into another step. Pay attention. We're going to analyze this based on another different brisa. Okay, so you want to say, why does it say over there you can't take truma? Because Rabbi Yossi says you're not Yotzeh, therefore you shouldn't make a bracha either, affecting Gemara. But then we learn in a brisa. A person, when he says benches, he cannot say the word so quietly that he can't hear. That's what means by here. But even if he didn't hear the words, again, it doesn't mean he didn't say them at all. He did say the words, but very quietly that he couldn't hear it. He's Yotzeh. Now, 1 second. He says, so you're yotzei. So it means b'diavad you are yotzei. So money, now who does that fit into? If you think about it, what we just said doesn't go either way. Lo Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, why? Let's analyze. Rabbi Yehuda, you want to say Rabbi Yehuda's shita does not fit with the din of Trumas. And he says, no problem, this whole thing is not true at all, you don't have to hear it all. Nami Yotza, Rabbi Yosef, Diavad Nami Lot. And according to Rabbi Yosef, so then you must hear. And that means even b'di'evid, you will not be yotzei. And here it says that if he already did birkas hamazon, he should make it again. He is yotzei b'di'evid. So now, based on this, we have to we have to reopen our whole assumption here. So there's got to be, this has to fit in. It can't be, it's l'chayra, not out of the moon, l'chayra. The sheet is not made up. It's got to be one of the two sheets, l'chayra. So the Gemara says, Eloi Rabbi Yehuda. So let's go back to the drawing board. It's Rabbi Yehuda. And Nami. Oh, no, sorry, we really are making it a third shita. It's really Rabbi Yehuda. And, I'm sorry, did I skip something? No, Eloi Rabbi Yehuda. What? I skipped something? Sorry. I'm sorry. Sorry, I skipped. That makes sense. Rabbi Yehuda. Oh, so let's go back to the step. Let's go back to assumptions. Rabbi Yehuda. With the evidence, so really Rabbi Yehuda, even though like we originally suggested, the Rabbi Yehuda says only b'di'evid, but lechatchila he says koirei b'di'evid. So that's good. So Rabbi Yehuda says lechatchila lo. He says, and he could be the same author, this Tana by Birkas Hamazon. And now we can question our assumption. Maybe he's also the author of the din of the Cheresh, who says we shouldn't take truma. So we don't know it's a Yossi. Okay. Okay, fine. So let's try that. 1 second. If that's true, now I have a new problem. Okay, I have to pay attention. Now it's another step here. It's a little tricky, this Gemara. Pay attention. Now don't get confused. This Rabbi Yehuda doesn't mean this Rabbi Yehuda, just another brisa. Let's call it the braid of Shimon Pazi. Forget about the Rabbi Yehuda part. Don't get confused with that. But this other brisa says, so now we have another brisa that says you can even take truma l'chatchila. Now we just got to finish giving a whole shmooze how according to Yossi that l'chatchila you're not allowed to take truma. And that's why the first Mishnah fits going to Yossi. Now, according to Yehuda. And of Yossi Vadai, you're not Yotzi B'chalal. So money, Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Diavini in the Chatchila. Even Rabbi Yehuda, we said you can't do Lechatchila. Here it says Lechatchila. Even B'diavad doesn't work. So now we have a new brisa, which we can't explain at all, according to what you're saying. So let's go back again. Really, it's Rabbi Yehuda v'avdil nami. Really, Rabbi Yehuda's shita is no. It's no. Like we wanted to say, like the second step in the Gemara was. Rabbi Yehuda says a koire is lav dafka yoytze afilu chatchila, and that's why it says here that the cheresh chatchila could take truma, no problem. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Oh, so 1 second. But we still need there's still a middle ground. We have to remember Birkas Hamazon, that you shouldn't, but b'di'evid works. So who's that? You're saying Rabbi Yehuda's l'chatchila. So Rabbi Yehuda v'l'chila, nami. V'lo kasha. What about the contradiction? What about the other place Rabbi Yehuda says, Hadidei Adirabbe. So there's two shitas, Rabbi Yehuda. There's two. One opinion is saying Rabbi Yehuda is like the second shita. Medaber says l'chatchila. The other din of Birkas Hamazon that said only b'di'evid, that's not Rabbi Yossi, it's Rabbi Yehuda, but that's Rabbi Yehuda b'shem his Rebbe. Let's see who that. This is Rabbi Yehuda according to his Rebbe, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Now here he says, even though Rabbi Yehuda we're saying is the one who says you don't have to do this, but here he says the same as Rebbe that you do have to tzarich l'shmila oznov. So just 1 second, let's stop it here a second. So we see, so this is the third shita, that here tzarich means you should, But we're assuming that that's only Chatchila. Tzarich is mashma. You should. It's correct. It's not like Rabbi Yossi who says a koire is lo yatsa. It's a third shita that says you should. That's the shita Birkas Hamazon. That's his Rebbe. The shita in our Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says lefi lechatchila. The shita of the brisa of Chevish is lechatchila. That's Rabbi Yehuda lechatchila. Okay, so now there's the Rameir's cholik on Rabbi Nazim Nazaria. Amal Rameir, Riyam Hashem lekim tzavich hayam levavecha. Why do you have to hear? It says levavecha. Kavanas alei ve'nein dvarim. You go according to your heart, so you have to say it, but you don't have to hear it. It's something in your heart. So the one says, okay, 1 second. Maybe Rabbi Yehuda really says b'di'evid. It's a little bit confusing. He says b'di'evid, and he's the author of b'di'evid. He says Birkas Hamazon. You're right to b'di'evid, but you shouldn't. So who's the shita that says the chayrish can take truma no problem? It's once you mention Rabbi Rameir, so Afil Tem Yehuda Karabis Filei V'Kasha Rameir Rabbi Yehuda. The author of the din of Truma B'di'eved is Rameir. It's a different sheet. It's a third sheet. The bottom line is we have to create a third sheet. The third sheet says there's a middle sheet that says B'di'eved, and there's a third sheet that says even the Chatchila, and Rabbi Yossi says you're not even there to B'di'eved. So now according to this, Rameir is the Chatchila shita, and Rabbi Yehuda, back in our Mishnah, we're going back and say Rabbi Yehuda might hold even b'di'evid, and he holds you can't take truma, and it could be according to Rabbi Yehuda. The Mishnah might be according to Rabbi Yehuda, very well might be according to Rabbi Yehuda also, and the Birkas Hamazon certainly will be according to Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, we'll stop here. This is